Have you ever looked at a hot dog and wondered if that quick, cheap bite is hiding something your body will pay for later? Because once you see what is really inside some of America's favorite Franks, your next cookout may never feel the same again. And before we go deeper, do me one quick favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with one person who still thinks every hot dog is basically the same. Hot dogs are one of the most normal foods in America. They show up at ball games, school events, backyard parties, gas stations, street carts, and family cookouts. They're cheap, fast, salty, and familiar. For a lot of people, they also carry memories. Maybe you ate them after Little League games. Maybe your parents threw them on the grill every summer. Maybe they were the easiest thing to make when money was tight and everyone was hungry. That is exactly why this topic matters. When a food feels normal, people stop asking questions. They stop reading labels. They stop wondering what kind of meat is inside, how much sodium is packed into one link, or what extra ingredients are used to make that product look pink, taste stronger, and last longer on a shelf. A hot dog becomes just a hot dog. But not all hot dogs deserve to be treated the same. Some are made with cleaner ingredient lists, better cuts of meat, and fewer red flags. Others are built around the cheapest possible formula. That usually means highly processed meat, more fillers, more added starches or sugars, and enough sodium to make a simple lunch hit your body like a brick. And if you eat them often, the problem is not just the hot dog itself, it is the pattern. One processed lunch becomes two becomes a habit becomes years. So in this video, we are separating the brands that raise serious concerns from the ones that are at least a smarter choice. This is not about fear, it is about paying attention. Because if you're going to eat hot dogs, you should know which ones are worth your money and which ones are trading your health for a lower price tag. Let's start with the brands. That should make you pause. The first one is Bar S Classic Franks. Bar S is everywhere because it is cheap, and that low price is the whole point. When a pack costs almost nothing, people assume they're getting a harmless bargain. But low price often means the company had to cut corners somewhere. And with these hot dogs, the ingredient list tells the story fast. One of the biggest problems people point to with budget Franks like these is mechanically separated meat. That term sounds technical, but the reality is simple. It means leftover tissue is pushed through machinery so the final product can be turned into a smooth meat paste. Companies use it because it is efficient and cheap. Consumers eat it because the package still says hot dog and the grill still makes it smell good. Then come the extras. You often see added starches, sweeteners, preservatives, and curing agents that make the product more shelf-stable and more uniform. The result is a hot dog that may be affordable, but it does not feel like a food built around quality. It feels built around cost control. The texture can be soft. The flavor can lean heavily on salt instead of real meat richness. And once you notice that, it is hard to ignore. Next is great value. Store brands are not always bad. Some are made by solid manufacturers and simply sold at a lower price. But with hot dogs, you really have to read the package instead of trusting the logo on the front. Great value? Franks often get attention for the same reason many bargain brands do. A long ingredient list, heavily processed meat sources, and a formula that aims for low cost first. This is where a lot of shoppers get trapped. They compare two packs and think, why spend more when they both look the same in a bun? But they do not look the same once you read what is inside. A cheaper dog may include syrup, modified starches, flavor boosters, and preserved meat blends that do not leave much room for actual quality. And even when the sodium number seems only moderately bad at first glance, remember how easy it is to eat 2, 3, or 4 in one sitting. That is the hidden problem with foods like this. Nobody eats one tiny hot dog with no bun, no chips, and no condiments. Real people eat meals, not label math. And in a real meal, the sodium and processed ingredients pile up quickly. Then there is Sugardale. This one is tricky because older brands often carry trust. People assume a company that has been around forever must be doing something right. Sometimes that is true. Sometimes the name survives longer than the standards do. Sugardale has fans who like the taste, and that is exactly why brands like this keep winning shelf space. They know how to hit that salty, smoky, nostalgic flavor that reminds people of childhood cookouts. But taste alone should never be the whole test. A product can taste great and still be loaded with the same problems people are trying to avoid. When you see heavy sodium, added sugars, processed fillers, and curing ingredients all packed into one small link, you are not looking at a smart, everyday food. You are looking at something that works best as a rare indulgence, if that. The danger is that many families do not treat it like an indulgence. They treat it like a default. And defaults shape health more than treats do. That brings us to Gwaltney. Some brands try to market themselves as lighter or leaner because they use more poultry. That sounds healthier until you check what you are actually getting. A lower fat label can distract people from everything else that matters, like low protein, high sodium, poor meat quality, or the same long list of processed ingredients hiding in the background. A hot dog should at least give you some decent protein in exchange for what you're eating. When the protein is weak, but the sodium is still high, that is a bad trade. You're not getting much nutritional value. You are mostly getting processed meat, additives, and salt. That is not a health food. It is just a weaker version of junk food wearing a friendlier label. And this is an important lesson for the whole grocery store. Healthier sounding does not always mean healthier. If a product says turkey, chicken, lean, or lower fat, do not stop there. Turn the package over. Read the ingredients. Read the sodium. Read the serving size. That is where the truth lives. Now let's talk about Oscar Mayer. This is one of the most famous names in the category, which makes it even more frustrating. When a brand is this iconic, people stop judging it. They buy it on autopilot. The name feels safe because it has always been around, but brand familiarity is not the same as product quality. Oscar Mayer products have drawn criticism over the years for the usual issues that haunt processed meats: preservatives, sodium, saturated fat, and overly engineered formulas designed to maximize taste and shelf life instead of nutrition. Some of their options may taste fine, but that is almost beside the point. Plenty of problematic foods taste fine. That is how they keep selling. The larger issue is trust. If a brand has built itself into a symbol of American comfort food, people expect it to deliver something dependable. Instead, many shoppers are still getting a product that belongs in the heavily processed category and should be treated with caution, not habit. And if you are learning something useful so far, here is a different kind of challenge. Drop a comment with the hot dog brand you grew up eating, then hit subscribe so you do not miss the next breakdown. Sometimes the food tied to our best memories has the worst label. The next brand is Ballpark. Ballpark sells the fantasy of the American summer. The name alone makes you picture baseball, sunshine, mustard, and the smell of a grill. That image is powerful. It can make people assume the product is simple, classic, and all-American in the best way. But packaging is a story, not a guarantee. Ballpark has long been criticized for formulas that still rely on the same old processed meat playbook. Some versions use mixed meats. Some lean hard on sodium. Some include extras people would rather avoid if they were truly paying attention. And while the brand offers different varieties, that does not erase the central issue. Popular does not mean clean. Popular means familiar, affordable, and widely distributed. That is a business win. It is not necessarily a nutrition win. In fact, this is one of the biggest mistakes shoppers make in every aisle. They confuse popularity with quality. The best-selling option is often just the one with the loudest branding, the biggest distribution, or the strongest nostalgia. It is not automatically the one your body would choose. And now we get to Jenny O. A lot of people see turkey hot dogs and instantly assume they are making the responsible choice. This is one of the most successful food illusions in modern grocery shopping. Turkey sounds cleaner. It sounds lighter. It sounds like damage control. But again, words on the front of the package mean almost nothing by themselves. If the product is still highly processed, still loaded with sodium, still built with a list of additives, and still far from whole food, then switching from beef to turkey does not magically solve the core problem. In some cases, it only creates a health halo around a product that still deserves serious caution. And that is why Jenny O lands as one of the most disappointing names in this space. It sells reassurance. People think they're stepping away from the worst version of the food, when in reality they may still be eating something highly processed and not especially nutritious. So those are the 7 types of brands and formulas that deserve a hard second look. The ultra-budget links, the overstuffed store-brand Franks, the legacy names running on nostalgia, and the lean-looking options that are not nearly as healthy as they appear. Now let's shift to the better side of the list. Better does not mean perfect. A hot dog is still a processed meat product. No brand turns it into broccoli. But some brands do a much better job with meat quality, ingredient simplicity, flavor balance, and overall nutritional damage control. If you still want hot dogs in your life, these are the kinds of names that make more sense. First up is Ambassador. Ambassador usually appeals to people who care about texture almost as much as taste. This is where casing matters. A natural casing can give that clean snap people associate with a proper old-school Frank. That bite changes the whole experience. Instead of a limp, soft texture, you get something firmer and more satisfying. That matters more than it seems. When a brand relies on real meat quality and better structure, it often does not need to hide behind as many tricks. The product feels more intentional. The flavor tastes more grounded. Even when the nutrition is not perfect, the hot dog at least feels like it was built by people trying to make food, not just manufacture a cheap tube of salt. Then there is Niman Ranch. This brand has built a stronger reputation by focusing on sourcing. That matters. The quality of the animal, the feed, and the farming standards all affect how people feel about the final product. Many consumers are not just asking, is this low calorie? They're asking, where did this meat come from? How was it raised? And how many unnecessary ingredients were added after the fact? Niman Ranch tends to attract shoppers who are willing to pay more for cleaner labels and more confidence in sourcing. That will not fit every budget, and that is fair. But if someone is already planning to buy hot dogs, paying a little more for a better product can make sense, especially if that brand avoids some of the harsher shortcuts used by the bottom-tier options. Next is Wellshire Farms. Wellshire has become a favorite among people who read ingredient lists carefully. That is usually a good sign. Brands do not win that kind of loyalty by accident. They win it by giving shoppers a reason to feel less nervous when they flip the package over. A cleaner label, no nitrites in certain varieties, and fewer strange extras can go a long way here. The big advantage is psychological as much as nutritional. When food looks less like a chemistry project, people feel more in control of what they are eating. And honestly, that is not paranoia. That is basic common sense. If you cannot explain why 10 different additives are needed in your lunch, maybe your lunch is too complicated. Now let's talk about Kirkland Signature. Kirkland is interesting because it sits right at the intersection of taste, value, and mass appeal. A lot of shoppers know the Costco food court dog. It has a real fan base, and that fan base exists for a reason. The flavor is bold, beefy, and satisfying. It feels like a proper treat. And what makes Kirkland stand out is that it shows a mainstream brand can still deliver something more substantial than the lowest quality bargain Franks. People often describe it as fuller, meatier, and more balanced. It is not pretending to be a wellness product. It is trying to be a good hot dog, and in that lane, it performs well. The caution, of course, is portion size and sodium. A larger, tastier dog can pack a heavy punch, so even among the safer picks, context matters. Better does not mean limitless. And if this list is helping you shop smarter, here is your second checkpoint. Send this video to the one friend who still buys hot dogs by price alone. And if you want more no-nonsense food breakdowns, tap the like button like you are flipping a bad brand off the grill. Now we move into some of the strongest names on the board. Applegate Organics has earned attention because it speaks directly to the modern shopper who wants fewer mystery ingredients. Words like organic and grass-fed are not magic spells, but they do signal a different approach. The appeal here is simple. Shorter ingredient lists, fewer synthetic extras, and a product that sounds less industrial. For many buyers, that alone is a relief. The taste can be a little different from the classic ultra-processed hot dog profile, and that is not a flaw. In fact, it may be a sign that your palate is meeting a less engineered product. Some people want the aggressively salty, hyper-uniform flavor they grew up with. Others are ready for something that tastes more like seasoned meat and less like processed nostalgia. Applegate tends to attract the second group. Then comes Sabrett. Sabrett carries a street food reputation that gives it a unique place on this list. For many people, this brand is tied to a very specific experience. City energy, sidewalk carts, steam rising into the air, and that first bite when you're hungry and in motion. Food memories like that matter because they connect flavor with feeling. But Sabrett also earns respect on the product side, better texture, stronger meat identity, and versions with fewer red flags make it more than just a nostalgia pick. It is one of those brands that can satisfy both the person chasing a memory and the person actually reading the label. That balance is hard to pull off. Nathan's Famous is another brand that lives in that space. Nathan's has one of the strongest reputations in American hot dog culture, and unlike some legacy names, it still gets credit for delivering a product many people genuinely enjoy. The flavor is assertive. The beef profile is more obvious. The brand identity is powerful. But it is supported by a hot dog that many shoppers still rank highly. And this is where we have to be fair. Nostalgia is not always fake. Sometimes a brand becomes iconic because it really does perform. The problem is when shoppers stop distinguishing between deserved reputation and lazy reputation. Nathan's has managed to keep enough credibility that it still lands on the safer side for many consumers, especially compared with the heavily processed bottom tier. Then we get to Boar's Head. Boar's Head tends to signal premium quality across multiple deli categories, and that image carries into its hot dogs. People expect a more serious product, and in many cases, that is what they get. Better beef, cleaner overall presentation, and a taste profile that feels less sloppy can make a noticeable difference. One of the reasons premium brands matter is not because every bite is suddenly healthy. It is because premium brands often prove how much of the lower-end market is built on compromise. Once you taste a better Frank, it becomes obvious how many bargain brands were getting by on sodium, smoke flavor, and childhood memory alone. The next big name is Hebrew National. Hebrew National has long built its reputation around standards. For many people, that matters a lot. The brand suggests care, consistency, and a stronger set of expectations around what goes into the product. Whether someone buys it for kosher reasons, flavor reasons, or just trust, the result is the same. It is often viewed as a more reliable option than the cheaper alternatives crowded around it. That trust is valuable because food shopping is full of uncertainty. Most people do not have time to deeply research every product they buy. They lean on brand signals. When a company earns that trust through consistency, it gets rewarded. And when a company abuses that trust, it should lose the sale. And now we are getting very close to the top. 365 by Whole Foods deserves attention because it takes the store brand idea and pushes it in a better direction. This is not just about being a private label. It is about showing that a retailer can offer a hot dog aimed at shoppers who care about quality, sourcing, and fewer junk ingredients. The appeal is obvious. You get a product that often feels cleaner and more substantial than bargain competitors, while still being more accessible than some fully premium specialty brands. It is a middle path, and for many households, middle paths are what actually work. People do not always need perfection. They need realistic upgrades. A slightly better habit repeated for years can matter more than one short burst of perfect eating. And that brings us to Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has built much of its grocery identity around giving people a feeling that they found the smarter version of something ordinary. Sometimes that reputation gets exaggerated. But when it comes to hot dogs, many shoppers feel Trader Joe's really does offer one of the best value to quality balances around. The big win is that the brand manages to speak to several needs at once. It feels more thoughtful than a bargain brand. It tends to look cleaner than the worst offenders. It does not always hit the highest premium price point. And people often like the taste. That combination matters because food choices are rarely made on one factor alone. People want a product that is good enough, clean enough, affordable enough, and enjoyable enough that they will buy it again. Trader Joe's often wins because it lands in that sweet spot. But now let's step back, because this video is not really just about brands. It is about how people make food decisions in the real world. Most bad food choices do not happen because someone is lazy or foolish. They happen because marketing is louder than truth. A package says turkey, so people think healthy. A package says classic, so people think trustworthy. A low price feels smart in the moment. A familiar logo feels safe. A child likes the taste, so the parent buys it again. None of that is irrational. It is human. The food industry knows this. It knows most shoppers are tired, busy, distracted, and trying to solve dinner quickly. It knows people do not want to stand in an aisle for 20 minutes decoding labels. It knows nostalgia is powerful. It knows health halos work. And it knows that if a product tastes salty and satisfying enough, millions of people will stop asking questions. That is why learning how to zoom out matters. When you look at a hot dog, do not just ask, does this taste good? Ask a better set of questions. What kind of meat is this actually using? How long is the ingredient list? How much sodium is hiding in one serving? Is the brand relying on real quality, or is it leaning on preservatives, fillers, sugar, and clever wording? Am I eating this once in a while, or am I normalizing it several times a week? That last question may be the most important one, because frequency changes everything. A processed hot dog at a baseball game once in a while is one thing. A heavily processed hot dog in a child's lunch every few days is another. A cheap pack used as a weekly household staple for years is another story again. The body keeps score quietly. It does not always complain right away. It just absorbs the pattern. And that is why the safe part of this conversation should be understood correctly. Safe does not mean health food. Safe means safer relative to the worst options. Safer means better ingredients, better sourcing, fewer obvious red flags, and a smarter trade-off if you still want the food. If you truly want the healthiest path, the answer is not to find a magical perfect hot dog. The answer is to treat processed meat as occasional, not constant. Use better brands when you do buy them. Keep portions reasonable. Pay attention to what goes with them. And stop letting low price be the only thing that decides what ends up in your cart. Because cheap food can become expensive later, not always in one dramatic moment. Sometimes the cost shows up slowly, more sodium than you realized, more ultra-processed meals than you intended, more habits built around convenience than nourishment. And by the time people think about it, the pattern already feels normal. That is the trap. The truth is, food companies are not going to save you from bad decisions. Their job is to sell. Your job is to notice, to read, to compare, to think one layer deeper than the front label wants you to think. And if you made it this far, here is your final mission. Subscribe for more videos like this, share this with your family group chat before the next barbecue, and comment with the brand you trust most after hearing the full list. Your next grocery trip should feel a little harder for the companies that cut corners. So here is the bottom line. The hot dogs most worth avoiding are the ones built on the cheapest meat systems, the longest ingredient lists, the heaviest sodium loads, and the strongest health illusions. The better picks are the ones that show more respect for the meat, more restraint with the extras, and more honesty in what they are selling. Bar S, Great Value, Sugardale, Gwaltney, Oscar Mayer, Ballpark, and Jenny O represent the warning side of the aisle, not because every bite is instant disaster, but because they reflect the worst habits of the category: lower quality meat, more processing, more sodium, and more marketing than substance. Ambassador, Niman Ranch, Wellshire Farms, Kirkland Signature, Applegate Organics, Sabrett, Nathan's Famous, Boar's Head, Hebrew National, 365 by Whole Foods, and Trader Joe's land on the smarter side. Not perfect, not miracle foods. Just better choices in a category where better choices matter. And maybe that is the bigger lesson hidden inside something as small as a hot dog. The everyday foods we stop questioning are often the ones most worth examining. The products wrapped in nostalgia are often the ones that need the sharpest second look. And the healthiest decision is not always saying no forever. Sometimes it is simply refusing to stay blind. So the next time someone tosses a pack of Mystery Franks into the cart and says, "They are all the same," you will know better. And once you know better, you shop differently. That is how real change starts.